We have planted the seeds and watered the spring football talk show garden with yet another edition of Spring Football Has Sprung. Eugene Uba with you. Glad to see you. Glad to be here. Wow. Yowza. Already halfway home in the UFL. Can you believe that? It is truly something. I mean, the last week's developments were wild. I mean, you got the Spring King into the Battlehawks. You've got DTR over at the Stallions. And Jason Bean heads to DC. Sounds like the name of a movie. Maybe the UFL might want to produce that. I don't know. We'll see. But I can't guarantee that we will have a blockbuster with this show. But what I can offer is talk about the Birmingham Stallions, what I think they have in common with the Jets, especially after last week's performance. Then, speaking of performance, I'm going to be offering some grades. I'm going to become Professor Oba for a little bit and offer my grades, my midterm grades for the league up to this point. So, Mike Rapoli, I hope that you watch this segment. And then we're going to have John Lewis assess my assessment of the league along with some of the other developments going on. And then, of course, we are going to have our pick'em segment. But as we start the fifth edition of Spring Football Has Sprung, glad to have you here. Glad to be back. And I'll tell you, with the news about the trades and everything that's been going on, I mean, you have some Stallions players who apparently are not too thrilled with a lot of things that have been going on. You got some former players who are not happy with some of the things that are going on with the league, being blackballed and so forth, apparently. And then you have people thinking, some of you I'm seeing on Reddit and other places, thinking that the league somehow has got its thumb on the scale of these trades. I'm reminded of my first television job where the voiceover for one of the promos was like dramas that can't be ignored. And two things that cannot be ignored are that A, experience is a marvelous thing. That's number one. And then stability is also very much a marvelous thing. And going into this season for Birmingham, there was a lot of concern about the instability from Skip Holtz leaving, then blowing up the rosters. Then you had all kinds of rumors about relocation, maybe to Boise, Idaho. All and then you guys got a lot of crap. Stallions fans got a lot of crap about their attendance. So there was a lot of instability going into this. And it seems that all of the concerns have really kind of sort of hit ahead here with all of this. If the performance last week was anything to go by with this shutout, I mean, from one season, it makes all of the difference. Last year, and really throughout the past 3 years, it can be argued, and I think you have a legitimate argument, that the Stallions are the Chiefs of the league. You have had a Hall of Fame coach, you had some level of stability, and it was really, really good. And you had a winning organization, 3 times winning in the league. And then now with what we're seeing so far, you have the kind of sort of resemblance to now, instead of the Chiefs, you resemble the New York Jets. Dysfunctional. You've got a coach that his dance moves, Aaron Glenn's dance moves are better than his coaching. And then you have Woody Johnson, who's a bit of a weirdo. I mean, and it's just kind of sort of like the Jets are a poverty franchise. They really are. And at least you can say that with AJ McCarron, he hasn't selected players based on their Madden rating. So at least we could give him that. All right. But still, I think you guys had every right to be concerned. I think AJ McCarron is becoming clear now that AJ McCarron is really in over his head. Will he be the first coach in the offseason that will be fired? We'll have to wait and see. Rapoli on Twitter gave him a vote of confidence on that one. I mean, seeing Skip Holtz there, I mean, it's like, you see, this is somebody who has a real heft, and you almost wanted to put him, in on the sideline when I saw the game. So I don't know. We have to really look at this in the offseason. DTR, he may very well save the Stallions, and I think that this was something that was clearly afoot when AJ McCarron mentioned these at the presser.
We're not playing the quarterback position the way it's supposed to be played. Everything's on the table. Trades to QB change, everything's on the table.
Well, there is hope, especially with all of these changes. I mean, think about this. Back in 2023, Luis Perez, he was traded from the Vipers to Arlington at that point. And look at where that ended up. Got a win. So, hey, Birmingham fans, hope does spring eternal, but you're going to need a lot of it if you're going to be one of the four that end up in the playoffs. Now, the one thing that I do think Mike Rapoli has gotten wrong up to this point, and I think he's done a lot of things right in this league, but I think one of the things that he got wrong was banking on the rookie coaches to help increase the attendance. Now, look, granted, Birmingham, they got record attendance last week in this. But I think in totality, I think having the rookie coaches may have been, I think in some cases, definitely has been a mistake. I do not think that anybody, or at least most people, go to games, whether in this league or any other league, go for attend for rookie coaches or for really a coach at all. I think it's the players that are the draw, that is the appeal, along with the entertainment value that comes with it. I don't think that the coach, no matter how good or bad they are, is a factor, because if that was truly the requirement, then my goodness, Jets games, you would see nobody at MetLife. That's how that would be. So I think that that was really something that was a bit of a miscalculation. I do not think that the over 18,000 came for AJ McCarron. You look at the bottom half of this league, all but one are rookie coaches. All but one are rookie coaches. And with Sumlin, that was, as I've mentioned in past shows, that was a lateral move. It was kind of like going from kale to Brussels sprouts, neither of which are appealing. So, just saying, again, there's going to be, I think, a real evaluation of AJ and maybe some of these other rookies in this offseason. So, stay tuned for that. And one of the things that I now want to transition to is the interim progress report. Going to transition to Professor Oba for just a second here, because this is now the halfway point of the UFL. And in the school district that I was at, we would give, the teachers, that is, would give interim progress reports for the quarters, to let people know how they were doing before the grades were turned in at the end of the quarter. So now I think it's a good time to look at some of these categories. I'm grading the league in terms of quality of play, the entertainment value, and intangibles and optics, to really help provide a bit of an overall grade. And on the quality of play, I give that a B plus. I think that the games have been solid in terms of the quality. Remember, I have said that the comparable for quality in this are NFL preseason games. And if that is the case, then I think that a lot of them have lived up to that billing. I think some of these games are even better than some of the NFL preseason games that I have watched. I think the extra week of training camp has made a huge, huge difference in terms of the offenses really gelling and gelling very quickly. Usually, for anybody who has watched spring ball for a long time, it's usually not until the fourth, fifth week that we start to see the offenses really, really humming. And it has led to really, really, really close games, which we love to see because I think that ultimately it helps the TV products. Austin Reed, he has really become a breakout star in this league for the Renegades. There's no doubt in my mind that he is going to get a lot of NFL looks after this season. So that is really going to be great. I'm not sure that I really like having the 1 point as a kick for the point after. I'm not sure that I like that change from previous years. I prefer the scrimmage play. I think that you need to have a point of difference in this league. So, but having said that, again, the quality of gameplay is what's important. I mean, you can have all the concerts, you can have all of the other trappings that you want, but at the end of the day, the football has to be of quality. So I think that that gets a B plus from me. The entertainment value, A, I give that an A. I mean, the energy that Rapoli has brought in terms of the concerts, in terms of some of the promo, that sort of thing has really, really made a difference. I do think the concerts are genius. Some of the concerts were better than others, I will say. And who knows, really, in looking at the attendance numbers, some people were probably more interested in the concerts than the actual football. But still, I think it's a stroke of genius. Again, the close games that have been part of this, I mean, is great for nascent leagues. I do not think that blowouts are really, really good. You want to see people kind of stick around throughout the broadcast. And if you looked at the Fox number last week, some people tweeted out the Fox numbers and did the half-hour breakdowns. A lot of these stuff, they go up in each of the half hours. And this is the stuff that you really love to see. So I really like that. The broadcasts are fun to watch, especially the ABC side of it. You guys know how I feel about that, vis-a-vis the Fox broadcast. So entertainment value, that gets an A from me. Now, the intangibles and optics. I talk about the attendance within that. Really how this stuff looks to casual fans, really, because at the end of the day, you need to attract casual fans to this league. And I was going to give this category a C plus because when I look at some of the drops in attendance in terms of St. Louis and DC and some of the others, I was going to give that a C plus, and that's a real cause of concern for me in the two of your strongest markets. But I'm going to give this stuff a B minus, and the reason that I give a B minus, maybe giving a little bit of a curve here, is because of the TV ratings. TV ratings have been really, really good. I mean, these numbers, I mean, I was looking at the NHL's numbers that they've been averaging. They're a little lower than what a lot of the UFL games have gotten up to this point. And yes, I've said that the fun of it is, yes, comparing the UFL to other sports properties, but the real comparison, of course, is the preseason games. 2.1 million average for, or 2.2 million for NFL preseason games. But the fact of the matter is that the reason even mentioning the NHL is that ESPN, they pay 400 over 400 million. I think the number is 450 million for having the rights to the games. So the cost per viewer in terms of ESPN stuff is, in terms of acquiring those viewers, is way higher than what you get in the UFL. So if I'm somebody who owns the UFL and I'm looking at this, I'm getting similar or better, in a lot of cases, better numbers for way less money, then I think I'm sitting pretty. I'm sitting pretty. So I think this is really, really great. The attendance in some of these markets remain a bit of a concern. Dallas, it's not looking too great. Houston not looking too great. You want to have stands that are full. You're not just playing for the audience that are in the arena. You are playing for an audience that watches this stuff on TV, especially pulling in casual fans. One of the things that casual fans of the NFL and some other places will say is that when they flip the channel and they watch some of these stuff and they look at the seas of empty seats, it's like, oh, this is not worth watching, whatever, whatever. But then if you see what Birmingham did last week in terms of filling their stadium, then you take the wind out of the sails of all of the NFL snobs and things. So it's like, well, oh, the gameplay, blah 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 blah. Oh, the attendance, whatever, whatever. But you have a full stadium, then you knock the wind out of the sails of the NFL guys. That's the thing that really, really does help in this. You have to bring casual fans, as I've said. It is a real point of emphasis. That should be a point of emphasis for this league. And the drops, as mentioned earlier, do concern me a little bit. Now, let's also point out, and I'll give another league as an example. You know, if you look at the WNBA, right, and this is before Caitlin Clark came into the picture, I want to point out some numbers here. The year before Caitlin came into the picture here, you had total attendance of 1.58 million. 1.58 million. The average attendance of the WNBA at that point was 6,608, which is better than some of the numbers that some of the teams in the UFL are getting. 2024, that goes up to 2.35 million, 9,800 plus average. And then last year, 3.14 million of pie, maybe, and 10,000, close to 11,000 average attendance per game. And this is the WNBA, which has been around for a pretty long time. All right. So I know that there are some of you who will be like, oh, well, cool story, bro. Women's sports, blah, 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 blah. But think about this. In terms of cultural zeitgeist, right now, the WNBA has got the zeitgeist at this point. They are where the UFL really is where the WNBA used to be. And, you know, I say this because, again, the WNBA, before Caitlin came into the picture, that fan base was a diehard fan base. Like you talk about gatekeeping and things within the WNBA, that fan base was just basically diehards. Well, once Caitlin came into the picture, and granted, the WNBA was growing before Caitlin came onto the scene, but she, along with Angel Reese, but definitely with Caitlin, really exploded the growth of the WNBA. And you've got casual fans. And remember, as I said, the league has been around since 1997, started playing in 1997, established in 96. So I say that because it does give hope to the UFL that the UFL can really rise into that real cultural, like pop culture stuff, where it's at the point where you could go to any supermarket checkout line in America and ask 5 people and say, hey, have you heard about the UFL? And, you know, hopefully people would say yes. So, still some work to do in terms of bringing in people. But overall, I would give the UFL in the mid part of it so far a B plus. I think that the UFL gets a B plus. Games have been entertaining. Rapoli has brought the juice. Still some work to do, but and maybe with the attendance, maybe there are external factors. I had pointed out in the spring football has sprung 2-minute drill last week. Do check that out. That if you think about the gas prices, I use St. Louis as an example. That was up 63%. Have people's wages gone up 63% in a lot of instances? That's a big question mark on that one. So maybe there are some external factors in play. Even I was looking at some of the other games There was somebody who tweeted out even one of the Fever games that they're having trouble getting, having to sell out or whatever. So I don't think that some of those external factors could be dismissed here. All right. And again, I'm happy with the way things are. I think overall, in totality, with the league, and I think it's a B plus for this. But a few more things, maybe we'll push this stuff to an A. John Lewis of John Lewis Sports. He joins us now. John, I cannot believe this. Halfway home to this here third season of the UFL. I mean, time really, really flies. And it's crazy, isn't it? I mean,
it's just it's so wild. It felt like there was such a big countdown. We could not wait till it started. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, it's halfway over.
I mean, it's like, holy smokes, it's like here we are. And before the show started, John, I had remarks on my report card grades. And before this segment, I handed you my grades of the league thus far. I thought I would do an interim progress report. I said that the quality of play was a B plus, entertainment value an A, intangibles and optics B minus, and I gave the grade of the league an overall B plus. There's still some things that need to go to get me to put an A. But what did you think of my grades, John?
No, I'm with you on a lot of those. In fact, I think I might even go up to maybe an A minus on some of the plays because on the play, because if you look at it, it feels like the 1, 2, and 3 playoff spot might already be determined. A lot of things can change because again, only at the midway point of the season, but it really feels like Orlando in DC, they're right there. Dallas, I think, is right there. But that 4th playoff spot, if you look at it, I think other than Houston, like that 4th playoff spot might be open. And what I've really noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, how much better is the play from week 1 to now at the midway point of the season? To me, it's like it's much better. Offenses are starting to really gel right now.
It's unbelievable, John, because as you pointed out, and I mean, things can change, as you said, most definitely, especially with all these blockbuster trades that have happened over this week. Of course, Jason Bean over DC as the third string quarterback over here. But the play, as you said, it's been interesting because usually for those that have been watching spring football for a long time, like you and and I'm sure much of our audience have, it takes longer typically prior to the season to get the offenses gelling. And I think that the extra week of training camp really, really helped in this. What also helps is the intangibles and the optics. And there's one thing, John, that I wanted to get your thoughts on because the reduction in attendance week to week in DC and St. Louis, the two strongest teams historically in this league in terms of attendance. Am I overreacting here to say that this may not spell some good things for the league? Because it's like, whoa, when you see 20,000 in St. Louis and then DC had its first 4-digit figure since it started, I mean, everybody says, oh, but Eugene, they talked about Oklahoma City in 2028 and that sort of thing. But I said that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So am I overreacting, John, to think that these drops are a bit of a concern for the league?
No, I think that's the right reaction. And in fact, DC, when I saw that crowd or lack of a crowd, I thought that was a really big red flag. Now, I know there's a lot of things going on in DC. I mean, you know better than anyone. There are a lot of things going on in DC. But it just seems to me that when it's an 80-degree day and it was a noon kickoff against another really good team, like how are people not showing up? Now, I will say the 8,000 or 9,000 who were there are probably the people who showed up because it was an 80-degree day and they know that St. Louis, is a good team and that DC is obviously a good team. But my question is why are the casuals not there? Should have been a much bigger walk up crowd.
And especially given that DC won the championship last year.
Right.
And this was the same argument that has been bandied about Birmingham, that okay, Birmingham, they won the league 3 times, you know, and that sort of thing. But the crowds for now weren't exactly there. And there was the decline in attendance for Birmingham because I always say to people that if you think about the Chiefs, right, and I mentioned in the first segment that the Birmingham Stallions were sort of the Chiefs of the league
Yeah.
before AJ McCarron came in. And it's like, if the Chiefs were to have declined in attendance, then there would be alarm bells ringing at 345 Park Avenue. But I think the fact that DC has declined a bit now, whether this is an anomaly or a trend remains to be seen. And I did point out that DC is kind of a fashionably late crowd, a huge brunch market, but still, as you said, nice day. I would have wanted to see that crowd filled a little more. But John, one of the other things I wanted to look at is some of the flexibility that Mike Napoli has had in terms of these rule changes. I see that Louisville has been a big beneficiary in terms of the OT. In that, I know Chris Rudman seems to be talking about maybe appealing to Mike Napoli, about maybe making this a tie as opposed to a loss for Louisville. What do you make of the fact that Napoli made these changes in the midseason? And we've been seeing a lot of good stuff here. The 4-point field goals from Matt McCrane. Again, what do you think of the flexibility in this league? Should there be changes in the rules in the middle parts of the season?
Well, I understand there are a lot of people who did not like that they changed the rule. I will say this: I'm a Louisville Kings season ticket holder. I was at the game they lost on that overtime rule. Mike Rapoli was walking off the field. We were standing there waiting to go through, and I yell out, "Rapoli!" And he looks around, and I said, "Please change that rule." And he looked at me, and he kind of laughed, and he says, "I'm looking at it." And sure enough, that week it ended up getting changed. But that's spring football. It's kind of the Wild West. And would they do that in the NFL? No. Would they do that in college football? Probably not. They might take the NFL and college football might tell the refs to, hey, listen, let's have a little more emphasis on this rather than that when making the call. But this is spring football, and Mike Rapoli is a guy who will go in there. Let's remember when he was first announced as part co-owner of the UFL, it felt like it was about 3 hours, and here's Mike Rapoli saying, hey, we're going to have a team in Columbus. So the guy gets things done. And sometimes, he might not know what the rules are for traditional football. That's not always a bad thing. And I think that was a rule that needed to go. And a lot of people thought it'll go next season, but no way it'll go out this season. And it went out this season. It's spring football.
It is. I mean, spring football, as you said, John, is a bit of a petri dish.
Yes.
In so many ways. And of course, there's still the partnership with the NFL, that sort of thing. But really, it is very much, the only thing that's constant in spring football really is change. And I give them a lot of credit for actually doing this. And I think it's the big difference between this league and the NFL. I like it in one of the shows that we did. It's like the UFL is a bit like a gazelle. It's very light, very flexible, willing to move. The NFL is a bit of an elephant in this regard. So, but definitely the other thing about change, looking at these trades, John, real quick, crazy stuff. Make of all of the developments here with these trades, and I've been seeing some of the stuff with Reddit as well. That some people are thinking that the league is putting a thumb on the scale. There's some machinations from Rapoli over here. So what do you make of some of that stuff?
Well, the Jason Bean from Louisville to DC thing shocked me because, first of all, it ended up being a one-for-one trade for Louisville, who ended up getting DC backup Mike DeLillo. To me, that doesn't really help Louisville. And for Jason Bean, it really doesn't help him because he's going to go play behind Jordan Ta'amu unless, Ta'amu is battling an injury that we don't know about or something like that. So that one kind of shocked me out of the blue. Then all of a sudden it's Matt Corral, who had just started for the Birmingham Stallions. Now he's going to Orlando, and they send up Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who very well, could be a starter like right out of the gate, which a lot of people thought that anyway. Right. And then after that, the Luis Perez to St. Louis deal, which was kind of it. That one was interesting because Ricky Prohl, the head coach at St. Louis, said, well, we hope we don't need him. We think Harrison Frost is our starter. But Rick Neuheisel, the head coach at Dallas, said Luis Perez was the one who precipitated that trade. So to me, Luis Perez is not going to go from a backup at Dallas. I'm going to go be a backup at St. Louis. Ricky Prohl thinks that, he says he has faith in Harrison Frost as the starter, but we've seen there are two different Harrison Frost, much like there were two different Matt Corrals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say Luis Perez is going to appear in St. Louis as a starter sooner rather than later.
Maybe in the second half of the game, we have to see what goes on that one. The having 29% completion percentage for Frost, it does not help matters in this. I think that definitely and with DTR tonight, by the time we put this out tonight, I mean, what do you think of that in Birmingham? Because Birmingham, they had over 18,000 in attendance. Kind of laid the goose egg, though, on the performance on the field. So with DTR, I mean, seeing his tape and things, it's impressive. Is there a chance for Birmingham in this now with DTR?
Yeah, I think there is. And I think AJ McCarron just seemed he never, I won't say that he didn't throw Matt Corral under the bus, but he really, in his news conference this week, said he didn't want to go into detail about what he was really seeing, but he was really upset by what he was seeing in practice and obviously what he was seeing, the results in the game. I think DTR can go in there. And he sounded like he was ready to start immediately, like walking in. They have been really impressed with him there. I just hope that the Birmingham Stallions fans, I don't think 18,000 will show up, but I do think that, it should be a really good crowd to come in there, because here's a coach who says, I'm not going to sit on, we got blanked at home and now we have to do something. And he started to really make a lot of changes, much like Chris Redmond. Not that they got blanked, they actually coming off a win. And then he, mixes things up, sends out a starting quarterback, reconfigures the offensive line. So these guys know in a compacted season, when you're at the midway point, you've got to do something. But I think, to your point about DTR, I think he is game ready. And he certainly sounded like when we talked to him earlier this week.
Oh, so this game here this evening is going to be very, very exciting to watch. I cannot wait for the stuff here on Fox. And finally, John, you've talked with Mike Repole at the last game.
I yelled at him. I don't know that I really talked to him.
Whatever the case may be. But if Mike Repole watches this program and looking at this, what message do you have for him in terms of how you wish for the rest of this regular season and as we get into playoffs? What message would you have for Repole in terms of the rest of this season and how we want this, how people want this stuff to go?
Well, I would say, first of all, I feel like under Mike Repole that the UFL is in good shape. We obviously know, Mike, it's been a learning curve for you, but I think he has learned a lot on the job. I feel like if he doesn't need the status quo, but there needs to be some stability in the league. And I'm not talking about trades, but I just mean, hopefully everything is kind of, now that we've hit the midway point, and, you gave them very good grades. I agree with the grades here that you've given the UFL, because this feels like a reboot of spring football after mergers and everything else. And then Mike Repole coming in and kind of fundamentally changing everything. But to me, I would say, like, keep it going. The momentum feels like it's there. I really hope we start to see better attendance. I know that's a red flag. But right now, I think spring football on this level is in the best shape it's been in a long time.
Yeah. I mean, you and I, John, we have seen these leagues come and go.
Yeah.
That sort of thing over the decades. You've been in the broadcasting world for 30 years, so you've seen a lot. I've seen a lot as well. So let's hope that this league actually sticks, does make it to 2028 by the time Oklahoma City comes into play. Because I had mentioned earlier on in the show that right now the UFL is where the WNBA, I think, used to be in terms of the cultural zeitgeist. in terms of trying to grow the crowds from diehards. Because I think right now with the UFL, we have, people like you and myself that enjoy football. We're diehards about all of this. But it's a matter of bringing the casual fans. Let's bring those casual fans into the fold, and let's get the numbers as close to NFL preseason games as humanly possible. The average was 2.2 million last year in terms of viewership. So if we can get to that, and I think some of the ABC games have gotten over 1 million, I think that continues to be in good shape. Yep. So John Lewis of John Lewis Sports, 30 years in the broadcasting business and sports. Thank you very much for joining us on this week's edition of the show. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's always a good conversation, and it's always good to talk about spring football anytime.
Absolutely. Let's continue to do it. John Lewis, always great to have him on our show, and it is always great to make these picks. I think tonight's game, with all of the change that has been made, has become, especially with DTR, has made this a little more interesting than what otherwise would have been the case with this game. But definitely still, AJ McCarron still has to overcome the fact that he is a rookie coach. So give me the coach with the experience. The defenders, I believe, will win this away. Let's see what the crowd looks like. I will be very, very interested in seeing how that looks in spite of the loss last week. Now, the Battlehawks Storm tomorrow night, 7 p.m. on ESPN Saturday night. Same thing. Again, this may be very, very interesting a watch. Now, Luis Perez, the Spring King, is not expected to start, but if Harrison Frost continues to stink up the joints, last week, 29% completion percentage, and not particularly great. If he continues to not do well in this, then expect Luis Perez to come on in and start. And that would be, especially for the second half of this, oh boy, that would be something else, especially for the ratings. But I think that the Storm, Anthony Becht, I like him, big fan of him as the coach. He's having them humming, and the Storm is going to, they are going to win this, I believe, on Saturday night. Now, and that's going to be a compelling watch. What's not going to be a compelling watch, I think, sadly, is this Aviators Gamblers game. Aviators, you've got a rookie coach. Gamblers, the attendance is not so great. The atmosphere is not going to be particularly great. Maybe I'll be wrong. We'll see. This may be a game that I would flex to ESPN Ocho. Not going to waste too much time with this. I like Jalen McClendon. I like the potential that he's got over there. Give me the Aviators in this. And then the more compelling game on Sunday, in the Sunday doubleheader, Kings Renegades. Renegades, they're coming off of a loss. It's their last home game in their stadium, Toyota Stadium over in Frisco. Let's see what that looks like. Kings have been the beneficiary of some of the rule changes over here, but again, give me the hot hand in this with the Renegades. They are going to bounce back at home. And as we get ready to leave you, do not forget that we, next week, are going to have the second edition of Spring Football Has Sprung, the 2-minute drill, kind of sort of a shorter version of this show. Be sure to check out last week's edition right here on this channel. So let's have some fun with that. Also, be sure to also as well subscribe, ring the bell, all that good stuff, so that you can also see the shorts. Spring Football Has Sprung OT. You can get my instant, or really near instant, reaction to much of the games and much of the developments in this league. And I also love the fact that you guys are also engaging on the Spring Football Has Sprung Twitter. SF has sprung. So let's continue to talk. Let's continue to display your passion for this league. I love it. It has been really entertaining for our team to watch. So let's keep that going. Again, appreciate you all watching. Again, youtube.com/the CSE channel. Like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. We'll have the 2-minute drill next week. Back with a full episode on May 1st. And in the meantime, please, please don't fumble in the end zone.